Good morning, Michael here, and having looked at the verse from Hosea, chapter 11, just yesterday, I thought I'd look at the commentary on a couple chapters of Hosea, and we're going to focus on chapter 9, 11, and 12. So today, on chapter 9, we're just going to look at the commentary from verse 1 to 14. Remembering, of course, that Hosea was a prophet that ministered to Israel uh, back in the days, and by his own life, having been married to Gomer, and she was unfaithful to him. They did have 3 children, yet God had inspired him to still go get Gomer and pay off her debts and, have a very forgiving relationship with her. And this was a picturesque of how God had loved Israel. And so, despite them not honoring him as he would have desired, God still loved them. Yet then, let's just look at Hosea 9 from verse 1 to 14. And it's retitled God Exiled, Israel Exiled in Judgment. Verse 1 to 4, which is subtitled The End of the Good Life in Israel. It starts, Do not rejoice, O Israel, with joy like other people, for you have played the harlot against your God. You have made love for hire on every threshing floor. The threshing floor and the winepress shall not feed them, and the new wine shall fail in her. They shall not dwell in the Lord's land, but Ephraim shall return to Egypt, and shall eat unclean things in Assyria. They shall not offer wine offerings to the Lord, nor shall their sacrifice be pleasing to him. It shall be like bread of mourners to them. All who eat it shall be defiled. For their bread shall be for their own life. It shall not come into the house of the Lord. And exposits. A. Do not rejoice, O Israel, with joy like other people. At the time Hosea brought this prophecy, things perhaps were not so bad in Israel. Maybe there were plenty of fun and good times among the people. But they shouldn't rejoice like other peoples because judgment was on the way. And of course I think about our own lands even at this time. So much have we transgressed. But back to the commentary. It was probably the case, though we do not know this for sure, that Hosea delivered the opening part of this oracle as a sermon on the occasion of a harvest festival, characterized by feasting, mirth, and dancing. B. You have made love for hire on every threshing floor. Israel practiced idolatry on the threshing floor, a place where grain was processed. They worship idols here because they believe that it helped the harvest. Because of their idolatry, the Lord would curse their harvest and the threshing floor, and the winepress shall not feed them. Yeah. Sometimes our worship is our great power, our great armatorium. Section C. They shall not dwell in the Lord's land. Not only would God curse their grain and grape harvest, but he would also cast them out of the land in exile to both Egypt and Assyria. In the lands of exile there would be no bread or food for sacrifice to the Lord, only for survival. Their bread shall be for their own life. It does remind me of a time when Russia was starving, and bread was very precious, and they still shared that bread with the Germans. commentary, section 2, looking at verse 5 to 9. The days of Israel's punishment in Egypt. And it reads, What will you do in the appointed day, and in the day of the feast of the Lord? For indeed they are gone because of destruction. Egypt shall gather them up, Memphis shall bury them. Nettles shall possess their valuables of silver, thorns shall be in their tents. The days of punishment have come, the days of recompense have come. Israel knows. The prophet is a fool, the spiritual man is insane, because of the greatness of your iniquity and great enmity. The watchman of Ephraim is with my God. But the prophet is a fowler snare in all his ways, enmity in the house of his God. They are deeply corrupted, as in the days of Gibeah. He will remember their iniquity, he will punish their sins. Exposition, section A. They are gone because of destruction. Israel did not honor the Lord in their appointed feast days, so the Lord will take them away. In the lands of exile, they will not be able to honor the feast of the Lord. And it reminds me that in present days, a lot of festival goes, or meeting goes forth without prayer. No longer do they want to proclaim the name of the Lord. And those who do are deemed as extreme ideologists. The prophet is a fool, the spiritual man is insane. This is what the people of Israel said about Hosea. When things prospered and everyone was happy, Hosea announced coming judgment and called for repentance. They thought he was a fool and crazy. They said in effect, who in his right mind would prophesy a judgment like this when we are in the midst of such a bountiful harvest? In itself, a proof of God's blessings. Yeah. Well, eggs are up. Section C. As in the days of Gibeah, Judges 19 describes horrific crimes of perversion and violence in Israel in the days of the judges. Hosea says that in his day, it is just as bad in Israel. Yeah. Section B. Israel barren and dried up in judgment. And of course here we're focusing on verse 10 to 14, where God sends barrenness and bereavement. I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness. I saw your fathers as the first fruits on the fig tree in its first season. But they went to Baal, Peor, and separated themselves. To that shame. They became an abomination like the thing they loved. As for Ephraim, their glory shall fly away like a bird. No birth, no pregnancy, and no conception. Though they bring up their children, yet I will bereave them to the last man. Yes, woe to them when I depart from them. Just as I saw Ephraim like Tyre, planted in a pleasant place. So Ephraim will bring out his children to the murderer. Give them, O Lord, what will you give? Give them a miscarrying womb and dry breasts. It really is horrific, the punishments, the wrath that God may appropriate, but thank heavens for his mercy and his grace. A. Like grapes in the wilderness, as the first fruits on the fig tree. God fondly remembers the days when Israel was faithful and fruitful unto him. Grapes in the wilderness and the first fruits on the fig tree. are unexpected blessings. There was a time when Israel was something special to God, as if one found luscious grapes in the wilderness. While they were faithful, they were as acceptable to me as ripe grapes would be to a thirsty traveler in the desert. B. But they went to Baal Peor. Israel's sin and idolatry in the days of Hosea was like their sin at Baal Peor in Numbers 25, associated with sexual immorality and idolatry. Oh, how it screams presently from our lands. Uh, the, uh, the sanctioning, the legalization of sexual immorality. It's so horrific and despicable. Section C. They became an abomination like the thing they loved. Israel loved their disgraceful idols, and they had become like them. We will become like the God we love and serve, whether it is the Lord or like an abomination. Yes, God does hate things, and some things are deemed an abomination. D. No birth, no pregnancy, and no conception. In contrast to their past fruitfulness, now Israel will experience barrenness and bereavement. I will bereave them to the last man, given to them by the God they rejected. Give them, O Lord, what will you give? The idea is that Hosea began an angry prayer against the people. Give them, O Lord. Then he stopped because he checked his heart and didn't know what to pray. What will you give? In the end, he asked for a miscarrying womb and dry breasts. Really, Hosea prayed for mercy, knowing the coming judgment. He prayed, Lord, give them few children, so that those children will not have to face the horrors of your coming judgment. Sometimes those who see themselves, perhaps accurately, as more spiritual and closer to God than others in a church or group get angry and frustrated with those who don't seem to have hearts burning for the Lord. Their frustration is understandable, but the pause in Hosea's prayer should give them pause. It is a good thing to long for revival and spiritual passion among God's people. But if that makes us proud, angry, or bitter against others, then Satan has won a great victory. And so we're just going to stop on the exposition on this verse. Well, trust you enjoyed the commentary in this meditation. This is Michael here declaring, Jesus is Lord. Until next time, when we're likely to do Hosea chapter 11 commentary.